Well, in 1981, Antigua became an independent state with its first prime minister being their bird. Nearly 20 years after his death, he's still celebrated as a national hero. Well, his legacy continues through the work of his grandson, Sean.
Antigua and Barbuda are two of the most beautiful islands in the Caribbean. This tourism jewel was the vision of the island's first prime minister, Sir Vere Cornwell Byrd Sr. He was known as a fierce activist for workers and other citizens oppressed by the colonial system. He was loved by the people of this tiny island nation. His grandson, Sean Byrd.
I think he's more than just the first prime minister. He was the first chief minister, the first premier, and the first prime minister. I think growing up, I'm not sure that I understood what it all meant. In fact, I'm still learning today. I didn't really understand what it all meant or the significance that it meant to Antigua and Barbuda. You're around these things, you don't really have an appreciation for it until you leave the country and maybe you listen to other people speak about these things. You then have a greater appreciation for the struggles that they had before. But because it's not taught as a part of an education curriculum in the schools, that we are missing out on much of our history and much of what Sir Vere Cornwell Byrd Sr. meant to Antigua and Barbuda.
His legacy of activism continues through his grandson, Sean, who is fighting a different kind of battle.
I began to dig deep and recognize the threats that were coming to Antigua and Barbuda, which was in our education. I learned to find out how the books were changing to sort of teach our youngsters about same-sex. I began to recognize that the whole issue of carnival and the whole issue of revelry was being taken to another level. I remember I looked around and one guy who used to wash my car, he started to alert me as to the way that people were drinking alcohol and using drugs among the youngsters, how they were getting younger and younger. Now here's where the danger is. In a small country like Antigua and Barbuda, is that it's magnified because it's so small. So therefore, what might get lost in a big city would not be lost in a small country. It's magnified and it impacts each and every individual. The danger that I keep seeing is the fact that what we do, we compromise who we are because we're more interested in obviously living day to day.
Sean is the station manager at the island's iconic radio station, ZDK, where his father, Ivor Byrd, is the founder and managing director. Sean uses his platform to speak out on social issues. He took his cause one step further, founding Concerned Christians Coalition for a Healthy Society to address the ills of the nation with biblical truth.
We're trying to get individuals who are experts, like we're having the World Congress for the Families here. We're having people from Focus on the Family. We're having individuals to deal with the decriminalization of marijuana, trafficking, sex trafficking, the whole gamut of areas that we're dealing that are affecting the family, deviancy among our children, education. So the organization that we started now is to sensitize the nation of the coming threats, not only our culture, but our way of life, and to how the Word of God is being threatened in this nation and the Caribbean and the world.
Sean believes the future of Antigua and Barbuda hangs in the balance.
We are at a crossroads right now. A cardinal from the Vatican, when he came to the tour of the Caribbean, when they asked him at the airport why he landed in Antigua and Barbuda first, he said because it was the gateway. Now, if that's the gateway, that means you have the responsibility of opening and closing that gateway. Antigua and Barbuda, despite our size, have punched above our weight. We have one of the greatest cricketers in the world. Sir Isaac Vivian Alexander Richards. The US put Antigua as a tracking station right here. We had probably one of the greatest leaders in the world, Sir Vere Cornwell Byrd Sr. We have had Antigua is the only island in the Caribbean that bought out almost most of its the sugar estates. So I don't think there's any other Caribbean that owns as much of the land that we have. I believe we have the most natural harbors in the Caribbean. Lord Nelson made Antigua and Barbuda its headquarters for this region. He went on almost a year's strike against the colonial masters back in the day. So we have a history, and I believe we had a history now. I don't believe that we have been the best stewards of our sovereignty. I don't believe that we have been the best stewards of what God has blessed us with. And we have an opportunity to turn it around. My concern going forward is that for a tiny nation is whether we want to pursue what is our God-given purpose, what is our right, under God, obviously. I think that we have gotten away from the truth. We have a battle that's taking place in Antigua and Barbuda, and really, if you look at the concluding factor, is truth. That's really what it boils down to, and the truth, as we know it, is the Word of God.
Sean hopes his actions and those of other believers will not only transform Antigua, but leave a godly legacy.
I would like to think that I've played a part in bringing more of God to politics, to the nation, and the transference of lives.